Tonight, Via Rail cancels dozens more trains because of an anti-pipeline blockade near Belleville.
I got stuck at a 7 a.m. bus this morning because all the others were already sold out. So yeah, it's really frustrating.
The OPP says they are preparing to end the blockade, but there's no set timeline. Plus,
when they don't see people on board, after a while, the culture just says they think they don't have to pay.
the TTC wants to crack down on fare evaders after a new report shows clear trends in how people are scamming the system. And a historic Chinese restaurant is preparing to close its doors by the end of the month. I'll tell you about the bittersweet goodbye. Good evening, I'm Mike Wise. Via Rail says it is canceling 2 more days' worth of train trips along its busy Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal corridor. It's because demonstrators continue to camp out on rail tracks just east of Belleville in defiance of a court order to end that blockade. So far, Via has canceled 157 trains affecting about 25,000 passengers. But tonight, there are signs police may be preparing to enforce that legal injunction. Late this afternoon, the OPP delivered a message to demonstrators telling them the situation was now dire and that they would be ending the protest. However, as of this hour, all indications are they are still there. The railway blockade is happening near Belleville, adjacent to the Tyendinaga-Mohawk territory. Now, that protest is being held in solidarity with opponents of a natural gas pipeline in northwestern British Columbia. We're seeing similar protests in Toronto as well, where demonstrators shut down Yonge and Eglinton this afternoon. Now, as for the rail blockade, Via says service will not resume for at least 36 hours from the time the line is cleared, with trains now canceled both ways until at least Thursday night. Farah Morali has the latest on a very fluid situation.
The order states that this motion, made by the plaintiff, Canadian National Railway Company, also known as CN.
Near the rail tracks on Wyman Road in Tyendinaga-Mohawk territory, an enforcement officer reads a court order out loud that calls for this protest camp to be dismantled.
Court orders that any police, service, or peace officer be and hereby is authorized to arrest and remove any person.
It's a standoff that's brought trains to a halt for a 6th straight day.
Thank you very much.
But people here say they're not going anywhere.
We have a heartfelt feeling for those people in Wet'suwet'en territory, because what's being done to them right now was done to us, right here.
The fallout, more than 150 Via train cancellations, making for an unusual quiet inside Toronto's Union Station.
So they keep supporting numbers 1 to 10 for the 230 Belleville, Ottawa to the front.
At the Greyhound bus station, the opposite scene. It's packed to the brim with passengers from those cancelled trains. Some say it's the waiting and uncertainty that's the hardest part.
My train won't be reimbursed if I get a bus ticket and then say, well, I thought it was going to be canceled, so I have to wait to see if it's canceled. And then, of course, I got stuck at a 7 a.m. bus this morning because all the others were already sold out.
The frustration was palpable, especially from those who need to be somewhere urgently.
I'm trying to get to Ottawa to see my nephew who's just diagnosed with a terminal illness. So I really wanted to see him sooner, but now I'm stuck here waiting until 8 p.m. I'll get to Ottawa, I guess. But it would have been a lot sooner if I had been able to get the train. And yeah, the flights are $500 now, so this is kind of my only option. So yeah, it's really frustrating.
Emotions also ran high at a Toronto rally today. Protesters blocked the intersection of Yonge and Eglinton, calling for the RCMP to pull out of Wet'suwet'en territory.
We're not going to rest until the demands are met.
How long are these rallies and the blockades going to continue for?
Indefinitely. They're not going to stop.
Farah Morali, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, there is another day of strikes planned for public elementary schools in Toronto, Niagara, Waterloo, and Windsor tomorrow. That all comes on top of the province-wide strike today held by the Elementary Teachers Union. Today's job action affected more than 900,000 elementary students who will see 2 days of job action this week. Teachers in Peel, York, and Hamilton will walk off the job again on Thursday. The union and the province remain deadlocked on contract negotiations, with talks breaking off 2 weeks ago. The province says the key issues are compensation and benefits, but ETFO says it's about funding cuts and special education resources.
It's frustrating because we're already managing with our education as it is, and we're struggling because we do have large classes, and Mr. Ford wants those classes to be larger, so the struggle will be greater and the frustration for the kids will be greater.
What I hope is that at the minimum that we get new understanding from public about the realities of what kids are experiencing in schools and what it looks like there, because I don't think people actually know about what that learning environment looks like.
In a statement sent out today, the education minister maintains the government has put forward reasonable proposals, including a commitment to maintain full-day kindergarten. Teachers in Ontario's French language system say they will hold weekly province-wide strikes as well, starting Thursday. And there's now an official name for the disease at the center of the coronavirus outbreak. It is now technically called COVID-19. Now, this comes more than a month into the outbreak. The name shortens the words coronavirus disease 2019 into COVID-19. The 19 refers to 2019, the year the virus first emerged. The head of the World Health Agency says they chose the name to avoid the stigma of associating it with any particular country. Well, the federal health minister met with provincial and Toronto officials today to discuss the response to COVID-19. Patty Hadju says Canada is well poised to identify and treat potential cases.
This is our global contribution to reducing the risk of a pandemic. If Canada can take care of its own country in terms of reducing our rate of infection, in fact, we're supporting the entire globe's population health.
Hadju says Canada is also sending a plane loaded with supplies worth about $500,000 to China. That country is dealing with a shortage of masks and other essentials. And the final group of Canadian evacuees from Wuhan are now at CFB Trenton. Officials say none of the 188 who arrived there have shown any symptoms of the coronavirus. The numbers of confirmed cases in Canada remains unchanged since last week at 7. The TTC is planning to get tough on people who try to sneak onto streetcars without paying. It is losing tens of millions of dollars every year from people who try to hop a ride without tapping their Presto cards. As our City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly tells us, many adults are also scamming their way onto the system using their child's card.
Tap, pay, and ride. That's what's supposed to happen, but
You see an awful lot of people, again, dressed appropriately, have the ability to pay, and when they don't see people on board, after a while the culture just says they think they don't have to pay.
the latest TTC data shows people are sneaking on close to 6% of the time, with more riders skipping payments on streetcars than both other types of vehicles combined. That's costing the system $70 million in lost revenue every year. The TTC wants to boost the presence of fare inspectors to catch scammers in the act. But this rider advocate says that approach doesn't address the root causes.
Those causes are poverty, people not able to afford the fare. Even the TTC's low income discount is unaffordable to many people in Toronto. The other piece is Presto. You know, there's faulty Presto gates. People aren't always able to load their card.
One of the big challenges when it comes to fare evasion are adults riding for free using a child card, because from a distance, you can't really tell what I'm tapping. Both cards actually look the same, and data shows people are using the child version during school hours or later at night, and at subway stops like York University where there aren't a lot of kids. The new findings also show this type of fraud counts for more than a third of all instances of fare evasion.
One of the things I'm really kind of contemplating is the use of child cards, period. You know, we have so much fraud. Is there something else we can do?
Parents say just ditch the cards entirely.
They would like it to have fun with it, but I don't think they need it.
I think it's fair, especially if you're a young kid like that. As you get older, then you should be paying the fares.
The TTC will be exploring ways to combat the issue of adults using these child cards fraudulently, whether that's just allowing kids to hop on for free or redesigning the cards so they look a little bit different. Mayor John Tory says he's been lobbying on that front with Metrolinx. And if you'll remember, kids riding the TTC is actually a pledge he made a few years ago. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Colette Kennedy's here with her first look at the forecast. We've got one more nice day before we start to notice the temperatures taking a dip.
Yeah, things are going to change, and in between some snow is coming our way too. You know, so I don't know if these are the highlights or the lowlights, I guess. It depends how you look at it when we check out our headlines. There's that one more day Mike's talking about. Some poor travel on Thursday, frankly, overnight Wednesday, and especially Thursday morning. But even so, there'll be some residual stuff into the afternoon Thursday. And then, yeah, as we get towards Thursday night, boy, that temperature is going to fall off. So this is what we're talking about tonight. Just a few little flurries from earlier, and those are kind of drying up here. And as we go towards tomorrow morning, we'll start off with some sunshine for the GTA. There'll be some clouds in there, and we'll see more clouds mixing in as the day wears on, becoming more overcast into the afternoon. And we'll start to see by the early evening the system beginning to poke in with light snow for southwestern Ontario. And then by later evening, it's moving into the GTA. And just by the way it's tracking, we will see some heavier amounts, it looks like, around southern parts of the Golden Horseshoe there through the Niagara region. And as we get towards Thursday afternoon, still a little bit of wraparound stuff there, but it's basically kind of moving out, and that cold air is going to be ushered in. So I'm going to give you an idea about the exact accumulations coming up in the show. But overnight tonight, just know your temperature is still mild for an overnight low of -5, even though it feels like -11. And tomorrow up to 2 degrees for us. Yet again, one more day, Mike.
One more day. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Can farmers lead the way in fighting greenhouse gases? We'll tell you about one Ontario farmer calling for major changes to make farms more environmentally friendly. That's after the break. The federal government has a pest problem. According to a CBC News investigation, about 31 federal offices in Ontario have bed bugs. While most of the infestations are in Ottawa, the critters have also been found in buildings in Toronto, Hamilton, and Waterloo. The federal government is looking for pest control companies to deal with the issue, but the union representing federal workers says it needs to do more.
First and foremost, let's nip it in the bud, get sniffer dogs to proactively inspect every federal government building, coast to coast to coast, and then should workers who work in a building that has been found to have bed bugs, should they find bed bugs in their home, the federal government should cover those fumigation expenses.
Bed bugs often travel by stowing away in luggage, purses, or on clothing. That being said, officials say they still don't know how the pests ended up in so many federal buildings. A new coalition of farmers says they need a bigger role in the fight against climate change. The group launched today, marking National Agriculture Day. They want to fight the perception that farmers are harming the environment. And as Nick Boisvert tells us, they have big plans to help reduce harmful emissions.
One thing we like to say is there's never any bare soil in nature.
Underneath the blanket of snow on Brent Preston's farm, a medley of crops is surprisingly green and alive.
We've got peas, clover, sunflowers, oats. We mix them all together.
The technique is known as cover cropping, which keeps the soil active and soaking up carbon even in the winter. It's just one of the ways he's taking on climate change.
So these trees are all new since you started here?
Yes, so we planted these trees about 15 years ago. They're white cedar, which is a native species.
Cover crops and natural windbreaks are a big part of the operation at this organic vegetable farm in Creemore. Canada's larger agricultural industry isn't quite so green. The national coalition they've joined wants to change that with better policy and the adoption of more environmental practices on farms.
I think especially when it comes to climate change, people feel like farmers are part of the problem.
Canadian agriculture accounts for more than 10% of national emissions, but unlike industries such as oil and gas, experts say farming could be a sleeping giant in the fight against climate change.
Agriculture is a huge contributor to carbon emission, but it also offers a huge opportunity to reduce carbon emissions and also capture carbon.
And with Canadian farmers facing more droughts and unpredictable weather, the new coalition is facing an urgent and massive task.
The biggest challenge is really that there is not one recipe. There's no silver bullet to cure it all.
But farmers say it's worth taking that on, even though big chemical companies and industrial farms may not be so excited.
Yes, we are going to face pushback. There is a huge business model built around the agricultural system as the way it is today. And it's very profitable for folks.
The coalition wants to start working on new agricultural policies now, but they say government incentives and funding will probably be needed. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Creemore.
Patiently waiting, I'm passionately smashing every expectation, every action and act.
It's an exciting day for theater goers with the Canadian premiere of the musical Hamilton. The most celebrated musical of the decade runs until May 17th at the Ed Mervis Theater. But if you haven't bought a ticket yet, you may have thrown away your shot. People lined up for hours to secure a seat when they went on sale last fall.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
The Leafs looking for a win tonight. Freddie Anderson's still out for his 4th straight game. Leafs are down by 1 in the first. Tyson Barrie lets one fly from the point. It deflects in of Zach Hyman's shin pad. We'll take it anyway. We can get a goal. Let's jump to the 3rd now. Leafs down 2-1. John Tavares with an unbelievable pass to Hyman. That's his 2nd of the game. It ties it, sends it to overtime. It looks like the Coyotes have a win, but Jack Campbell says he's interfered with, and the goal is eventually overturned. Then with a minute to go, Kasperi Kapanen snaps his 14-goal gameless drought with the game winner. The Leafs win 3-2 in overtime. Colette Kennedy's back with her extended forecast. I'm going to enjoy the mild temperatures tomorrow because this time tomorrow night, we're going to be talking flurries and snow.
And we are going to be getting into that situation with some active weather. And I know how you feel. I like to just reflect not only on the fact we're going to have a mild day, one more tomorrow, but hey, on the mild day we had again today, so temperatures running above seasonal by about 4, some cases 5 degrees in terms of what we've been seeing. So we are kind of in between these two systems, but don't worry, they're coming together. A few ingredients: cold air, very cold Arctic air from the north, and some moisture is going to be making its way up from the southern plains of the U.S. So as these two come together tomorrow, this is 5 p.m., so we're getting into the afternoon rush. You start to see some development into southwestern Ontario, and then it spreads over towards the GTA as we get towards about 11, maybe even 10 o'clock into the evening on Wednesday night, carrying on into Thursday morning. The commute's not going to be good. It will be a slower one on Thursday morning, and still some residual stuff behind this on Thursday evening, so that even the afternoon commute, we could still have some at least flurry activity in our area. And then that cold air really starts to sink in. Now, it will carve some of the cloud cover out. We'll see some winds that'll cause a bit of lake effect, but we do get into some sunshine, but it is going to be chilly. In fact, we're going to see some of the temperatures dropping off for Pearson. I'll show you the reading that I'm going to have Thursday night, the forecast into Friday morning. That low is something we haven't seen since February 1st of 2019, so more than a year since it's gotten that cold. All right, there you are with your snowfall potential. Toronto here, this model's just giving 5. I think it could be more in that 5 to 10. You see how close that is between Hamilton and what's happening in Toronto, and enhanced just because of the tracking of this system, a little enhanced for St. Catharines, more of that 5 to 10 for southwestern Ontario, and closer to the 5 to 7 range to the north of the GTA up into cottage country. There you are overnight tonight in southwestern Ontario. Another mild one, similar to last night, feeling like -8. Tomorrow, temperatures running above seasonal, but those winds picking up from the west and getting a little bit gusty there. And then overnight tonight into the GTA, -4 to -6, with many of us in between at -5 for the overnight low. Tomorrow, southwesterly, westerly flow. Look at those temperatures. Enjoy those, because have a look at what is to come. Thursday is the changeover with that system moving through. Then the temperature will begin falling into the afternoon. By Thursday night, -19. We had -19.1 back on February 1st in 2019. So some very cold air moves in, and Friday's high -10, albeit with some sunshine. A cold night Friday night into Saturday as well. We'll keep watching, because there may be some extreme cold warnings going into place too, because the wind chills will be even colder than that, Mike.
But it's been more than a year since it's been that cold. Thanks a lot, Colette.
Yep, yeah, you're welcome.
Sea-High Chinese food has been around for almost 70 years, but they're closing by the end of the month.
They said don't close. One gentleman said you fly up here to eat before you close.
The community is going to be sad to see them go, but they're giving back to the community by auctioning off some of their retro decor, like their iconic neon sign. But they're not about to give away their secret plum sauce recipe, though. I'm Ali Chiasson. I'll have that story coming up.
Even if you've never eaten at the Sea Chinese food restaurant, if you live in Toronto, you've probably passed by it at some point near Bathurst and 401. Well, now after more than half a century, the restaurant is closing. But before that happens, the owners are holding an auction to help a local hospital. Ali Chiasson reports.
Look at all these old photographs.
Yeah.
It's amazing. This area looked a lot different back then.
Oh, yes. I couldn't believe it. At that time, it's farmland.
Sea opened in 1951 during what's known as the
golden era of the big 4 or 5 restaurants in Chinatown. It used to be all in the Dundas and Elizabeth area behind City Hall. They're all gone.
Yes.
And Sea moved up here.
Sea's neon sign has been buzzing here at Bathurst and the 401 ever since.
You had loyal customers going to your Chinatown location in the 50s sort of follow you up here.
Yeah, right, that's right.
The menu hasn't changed much, but the food prices sure have.
It's Sea's menu, you know.
Oh, wow. A whole dish for 75 cents?
Yeah.
Dinner for 4 or $5.75.
Yeah, right.
How times change, huh?
Yeah, right.
I grew up here. I did my homework behind the counter in my uniform when I was going to school in the area, and I also worked in the takeout counter.
I help pack the orders. I cooked a little bit sometimes. I've had many burns and accidents here.
After 3 generations in the Chu family, Sea is closing, partly because the landlord is shortening the leases in the building, and partly because it's time for them to enter the next phase of their life.
Most of my customers now, they old. And Baycrest is the place where most of them, they live.
Before they close at the end of the month, they'll be auctioning off some of their retro decor, including their vintage neon sign, giving the proceeds to Baycrest Geriatric Center.
They've been the whole life as our customer. So I want to do something that pay to the hospital.
We have a lot of customers and clientele that want to buy the sign or have it as memorabilia of some kind. We're still trying to figure out the logistics of that.
Different from a packet.
The family's secret homemade plum sauce recipe, in case you were wondering, is not for sale.
I think the legacy is just how we were ingrained into part of the community. The people were treated as family here.
It's like a second home to many people in the neighborhood. So definitely we want to thank everyone for supporting us for all these years.
Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Oh, that is our newscast for tonight. Thanks for watching. I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11 o'clock. Good night.